in a mobile experience to date. It's a device that features all of the generational upgrades that we've seen before. Great display, stereo speakers, headphone jack, expandable storage, a large amount of storage, a larger battery, a 4 focal length with cameras on the back, and of course an improved camera experience on the front. There's a lot to be said about the Xperia 1 Mark IV and why I like it. So in today's video, I'm going to talk to you guys about the top 5 features why you should consider the Xperia 1 Mark IV. Let's check it out. Like and subscribe, and make sure you hit that bell icon so that you're always notified to whenever we have new videos on the channel. The Xperia 1 Mark IV is definitely a culmination of upgrades over the years. We're talking, it learned not only from the Xperia 1 Mark I, the 2, the 3, but also learned from the Xperia Pro I that was released later last year. And that's some of the main things that I really appreciate about this device. There's a lot of things in this device. Now, I will say that I have a much more detailed process or walkthrough to this device that I put out a video last week. So if you'd like that, I'll make sure that there's a link for you guys in the description below. So we're going to start off with the first thing is obviously going to be the display. It's still the same 4K 120 frames per second, and of course the same size as we had last year, and of course it still gives us the same aspect ratio, which is definitely appreciated, especially when we're watching content that is formatted for this. And of course the biggest thing about this is we're still able to customize the experience, and now with a slightly better experience option here in the notification panel to switch between standard mode and creator mode, that is also the ability for us to enjoy content in the way they were originally filmed. So this device through and through for media consumption is at its best, the best experience you're able to get. You're able to set up the profile as well as the ability of jumping into creator mode automatically. Not only that, we're also able to jump into the settings tab and of course color calibrate the display to the best way we can. So white balance color calibration is also something that you're able to do, as well as the ability of increasing the refresh rate all the way up to 120 frames per second, even if when you're running at 4K. So from a content consumption, gaming, watching movies, and just enjoying content, and of course the ability of using it as an external display is even another benefit that we can do here that most devices don't even have, offers us that opportunity. And what I mean by this, you're able to actually use the external monitoring application here and connect the supporting input device that uses USB-C for connectivity. And of course, this is something that I'm just showing you guys right now. This is the camera itself. I'm running the feed from it through my system here on A10 Mini, and of course running it via USB-C. But the intention of this is of course the ability of being able to get the input audio levels, of course monitoring mode, streaming mode is also built into this. So there's a lot of little functionalities in here, and literally it's one of the best experiences you can get on a display. So if you want to be able to use this with your camera, this is a 4K panel that you can watch your video feed directly from the camera on this. Sometimes you may need to buy an adapter, an HDMI to USB-C converter, but if your system like mine with the A10 Mini that I have here, it works perfectly fine. So the display is absolutely one of the best options, and again, it is brighter and still as gorgeous as we've seen in the past. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about obviously is not just the display, but also the fact that we have a somewhat of a new experience when it comes down to the cameras. It's actually almost revamped entirely from what we've seen in generations before. First and foremost, the front-facing camera is no longer an 8 megapixel camera. It's now a 12 megapixel camera that gives us the ability of shooting 4K 30 frames per second and 1080p 60 frames per second on the front-facing camera when we jump into video. So this is something that I also demonstrated in my other video, and one of the main benefits there is the ability of having higher quality images and video come from the front-facing camera experience. But it didn't stop there. If we switch it over to the back sensors, you'll notice that we still have the 16mm equivalent lens on the back. That's going to be the main one on the top. The one time, which is going to be the equivalent of 24mm. But now we actually have a couple of new options that were added. Let's go ahead and jump over into the auto mode. I want to show you guys real quick. Now we have a couple of new focal lengths, 85 to 125. We actually have the ability of also doing seamless transition between those two focal lengths in video when we're recording. So obviously this is too close to the table. This is why it's not focusing, but we're also able to jump in all the way to 125mm equivalent lens. And this is the beauty about it. This is something that's a lot closer than what we've had with the Xperia 1 Mark III last year, where it was basically 70 and 105. Now we're going from 85 to 125. And keep in mind that even though I'm on the 24, I'm still able to basically play around and zoom digitally between the two lenses. Again, this is a big difference from what we've seen in the past, but the biggest difference, of course, of all is that we're not getting all of the special features only on the main lens. And what I mean by this, 4K 120 frames per second recording. Let's go ahead and hit the end. And what I mean by this is we jump into Video Pro real quick, and this is obviously going to be one of the best new improved version of the app. I'm actually able to jump in here real quick and jump in all the way up to 120 frames per second. But first and foremost, obviously we need to be in the right format. I need to jump out of seamless transition. Seamless transition unfortunately does not support 4K 120. So if I jump back from there and then jump all the way to 120 frames per second, I'm actually able to change between the 16mm, the ultra wide, the 24mm standard focal length, the 85 and the 125, and not miss a beat and still be able to shoot at 120 frames per second. I'm also able to do burst shots using the ultra wide as well as the ultra wide lens and the telephoto, which is also one of the big improvements. So high readout from all three cameras that are present on the back of the Xperia 1 Mark IV, and of course the capability of using seamless transition from 85 to 125, and of course better processing for HDR. So the cameras are not going to disappoint. And as you saw there with all the different samples I'm showing you right now, it's literally one of the best features I liked about this device. Now, the next feature we're going to talk about is of course audio. One of the biggest things about this device is the fact that it still supports this weird little port. It's called the 3.5mm headphone jack. So audio for the Xperia 1 Mark IV is definitely a big focus. So we still have the DSEE supported audio experience on the back. We have the ability of customizing the audio. The stereo speakers on the front are definitely better improved. They're tuned to have better mids and lows. So the audio, although not being louder than the 1 Mark III, we definitely still have the benefit of having better, louder stereo speakers and clearer bass and mids and lows. So the audio doesn't distort as much and it still sounds very strong. And of course, we have directional stereo speakers to face us directly. There's no side mounted or anything that goes out to the side. On top of the fact that, of course, we can use the headphone jack for no latency audio, great, supported with the DAC in here. Last but not least, of course, we also be able to use obviously your own pair of buds, but if you use Sony Buds that support audio with 360 audio experience, you're also able to enjoy that now with the ability of upscaling the audio directly within the settings here to be able to do 360 upmixing with the Xperia 1 Mark IV. So DSEE Ultimate, Dolby Atmos or Dolby Sound here configuration, but 360 audio reality with supported applications. Now for me, I've been using Amazon Music. It's not one of the supported apps, but it does feature 360 audio as part of their library. So hopefully if you're using like Deezer or anything like that that supports it, you're definitely going to be able to enjoy that. And I did drop a video separately here, of course, with the brand new link buds from Sony that give us the ability of having an open ear type of an experience directly within the Sony ecosystem. Now at the beginning of the video, I said something to you guys where I said that it learned from the Xperia Pro I. Now, first and foremost, what I'll say is this. It did not bring in the 1-inch sensor from the Xperia Pro I, but it did bring in the vlogging kit. The ability of using an external display kit with the device to be able to use this for vlogging purposes, but also the ability of utilizing the fact that now Video Pro, which you didn't use to support this in the past, now also supports the front-facing camera, since we have essentially a 12 megapixel sensor that was typically used in the back sensors here, put it on the front, and as you could see here, and of course I'm covering it right now, you could see here it definitely looks really good and we're able to use it. So one thing I love about this is the ability of using it with the external display. So we go ahead and connect it here, bring it in, make sure that it's not sitting on the power button, and that's one thing to keep in mind. We did lose one button here, but it definitely works for the area. Then after that, we go ahead and connect the USB-C cable, and I'll give it a second to recognize the display. I'll go ahead and turn it off, turn it on. And you notice right there, the device recognizes it automatically. I'll click OK, and the camera is now being used. And you'll notice right there, the rear display is being used, obviously for the full potential. What I love about this is I'm also able to change the different lenses. So let's go ahead and jump over to the 24. And now, of course, will look much, much better. But big thing is we have control with the controller. I can control all of the functions here, recording, zoom in, zoom out. And of course, the ability of using the front-facing camera. So now I can actually use the front-facing camera. So although you don't really want to do that, you can definitely see that here it's using the front-facing camera to vlog with it. So if you can use it in that form, works great. But most people, of course, are going to be using it in this format. And that gives us the ability of changing lenses between all of the 4 lenses that we have, the 125, the 85, the 24, and the 16. And get the audio measure, all of that stuff, and it works beautifully. This is great for if you want to be able to do your own personal vlog style, set it up, connect a microphone, use wireless buds, or even use a wired connection. And the reason why I like this is you have the ability of running power through the display and an external audio input. So not only do you have one here, but you also have one on top. So one could be for monitoring and the other one could be for audio input. Great for vlogging, and this kit is definitely very nice. It's magnetic, you can definitely mount it. Of course, very easy, very simple. Once you're done with it, just go ahead and close the application, and of course, the display shuts off. It works with Camera Pro and Cinema Pro, and of course, a lot of the functionalities in there work very, very nicely. Now, One thing I will say, the biggest part that also kind of surprised me with the improvements that they've done here is a focus, or a heavy focus on streaming. Now what that means essentially is that you can easily stream to YouTube or even your custom address directly within the Video Pro application, as well as the ability of live streaming within gaming. In the gaming center, you're also able to live stream directly. And even when you're using the external monitor, it also has an option for live streaming. And that's a big change or difference that we're getting here. And one of the things I really like about that is that the streaming functionalities will be coming to the Xperia Pro I and Xperia Pro in later on during the summer. And of course, that's going to be an additional feature that a lot of us can benefit. So live streaming, utilizing the system, utilizing the external display is going to be an absolute beast. You can set up your device, use the external display, use the best cameras on the back, shoot at the best resolution, and of course, be able to live stream straight to YouTube at 1080p 60 frames per second with ultra low latency for gaming and standard low latency for video. So a lot of the main benefits that I love about this is not just the vlogging ability, the HDMI input ability, but also the streaming capabilities. With the fact that we now have 512 gigs of internal storage as a standard storage capacity, is going to allow us to have a lot more flexibility to be able to utilize the fastest storage capabilities. And then at the end of the day, we still have the ability of adding an expandable storage here with the micro SD card next to the single SIM slot. We're going to have 5G, sub-6 and millimeter wave, depending on the carrier that you're going to be using. And of course, a lot of things here are obviously going to be culminating into the gaming experience. And some of the new improvements that we have here with the Game Enhancer is a couple of things. First and foremost, we still have the ability of customizing our experience and of course, utilizing the HS power control. This allows me to actually use power from an external source, let's say a USB source on the outside, without charging the device's battery, but running the device using that power, allowing us to have lower power consumption, but also the ability of lowering the temperature when we're playing. Because we know that the 8 Gen 1 is definitely a warm CPU, the last thing you want to do is add more heat generated from basically a fast absorption or fast consumption of the power from the new 5000 milliampere battery. So first and foremost, HS power control definitely works great. You can customize your experience. You have balance, performance, and of course, battery saving. As far as the focusing settings, you can go in here, turn them on if you'd like to turn them on. Display and sound, configuring the image quality, the audio equalizer, and of course, if you're using a headset, you're also able to set up some different experiences, even supporting a boom mic. Multitasking allows us to actually do some internet research based on the game that we're using, and of course, be able to get some more hints about it. We have obviously screenshot, gives us the ability of taking screenshots of our device. Under the record setting and streaming, we have a few options. There's the RT record, which allows you, if you turn this on, allows you to actually buffer in 30 seconds of your gaming experience. So let's say you're playing a game and you forgot to record that entire session, but you made a really cool shot and you want to be able to record it. If you jump directly into the recording tab within 30 seconds from that actual shot, you'll be able to capture that and record with the rest of the actual video. So a lot of new functionalities added in there. And of course, sorry, last but not least, of course, the ability of jumping in, streaming directly to YouTube with ultra low latency, customizing your thumbnail, and of course, using an external capture device if you want to be able to use that. A lot of functional things added directly into the gaming experience that really make this device not only a media consumption, a media creation, but truly an entertainment system in one device, all that fits in the pocket or in your hand. And it's one of the only devices that I can actually truly say that I can do this. I can touch one side, one finger to the other, and it still is a very nice, large display, 4K 120 frames per second, supported everywhere. Just absolutely fantastic. Now, one of the things I didn't get a chance to show you guys or talk about it yet because I haven't had a chance to check it out is Music Pro. Music Pro is a function or an app that they're going to be supported. Well, they will have that in the retail version that you guys pick up, as the unit that I have is still technically a pre-production unit. So Music Pro is intending to provide us a studio quality recording solution on the go for creators. And it's mostly intended for music, as the title kind of calls it, Music Pro. But for me as a creator for content, let's say when I'm traveling, voiceover is a big part of what I try to do, and being able to actually generate or produce clean voiceover is actually a very challenging matter, especially when we're traveling. Do I have the right phone? Do I have the right microphones? Do I need to be in a quiet room with blankets on top of me just to get that nice VO? It's really something that is always a challenging thing for us. So when we talk about the Xperia Pro I or Xperia 1 Mark IV, the biggest thing that we have in here is focused on content creation, editing, producing, and uploading and streaming. This is literally everything that Sony's trying to do here. And year over year, we keep seeing new improvements and new functionalities added. This is the reason why I would recommend this in a heartbeat for anybody that's a true Sony fan that loves the Sony Alpha Life and understands what is going on with this device. Why do we have so many options? Why do we have a Cinema Pro app, as well as have a Videography Pro app, as well as a camera app? The reason behind that is the choices, the functionalities, and the flexibilities to create the content the way you want to create it and not be limited by an automatic mode that sometimes is the right solution. But Sony will argue and say that you need to have a lot of options to be able to make sure that what you're shooting is exactly how you want it. At the end of the day, my hope is that you found this video helpful. Again, I've done a much longer video focusing on all of the features, all of the new things of the brand new Sony Xperia 1 Mark IV. But the main benefit that I want to share with you guys today is this is why I think this is a definite go. If you love photography, if you love Sony, this is definitely going to be not only a good recommendation, but an easy recommendation because it makes sense. It makes sense with all of the new features that we have in here, the better camera sensors that we have on the back, the better camera on the front, the larger battery, the larger storage, still having expandable storage, still having a headphone jack, and all just keeps getting better as time goes on. So let me know in the comments below, what do you guys think of the brand new Sony Xperia 1 Mark IV? And would you consider it as your next device if you're considering upgrading to a new device? This is TK. I'll see you in the next one.